Welcome everybody to a new episode of Sankirtan Stories. We are delighted to have actually two devotees with us today simultaneously here, two devotees from the Czech Republic. First, we have Jayagurudeva, disciple of Srila Prabhupada from way back, and we have our newer generation, second generation devotee, Sankirtan Das, who is a disciple of Bhakti Vikas Swami. Let me just give a little brief introduction as to Jayagurudeva's history and what he's been involved with. He joined, first of all, when did you join Srila Prabhupada? When did you get initiated, Jayagurudeva?
In 1976.
In 76, he joined and became initiated by Srila Prabhupada. And up and from, I guess, 1984 till 2005, he distributed entire sets of Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, to offices, enterprises, lawyers, politicians, abbots, bishops, public and university libraries. And he started selling the sets back then in 84 when he was the president of ISKCON branch in Salzburg. Primarily, he only sold sets, be it in Austria, Switzerland, Germany, and later where he is now in the Czech Republic. And his last set was sold to a library of the Faculty of Social Sciences upon recommendation letters from the dean of and a professor of political sciences. That was in 2005. Although he does serve Srila Prabhupada's mission today in a different fashion, Sankirtan as well, it's still Lord Chaitanya's movement. But in this days, and these last number of years, in the Czech Republic, he's producing, publishing, and marketing audiobooks for children in the Czech language, which are certainly a needed a medium for children to learn about Krishna very early on in life. So from 2006 to 2016, he has recorded in his production studio, which I think we see in the background there, along with the congregation, children and parents, as well as professional actors and musicians. And the entire Krishna book with songs and music has been produced. And currently he is working on stories from the Srimad Bhagavatam for children. It's a fantastic endeavor. So, so happy that you're doing that. And Sankirtan Prabhu, maybe you can enlighten us about your history and how you became a devotee. What book did you read that inspired you, if that's the case?
Okay, so when I was 16, I was becoming interested into some esoteric and yoga things like that. And we wanted to also become a good student, so to be better in learning. So we studied how the brain works, and in this way we came to meditation. And I was like a kind of person who does not like to be in the city. I wanted to be in the nature. So I was studying forestry school. And after 1 year of practicing different pseudo yogas and different pseudo meditations, we were borrowing books from our town library. And there was this sector for the spiritual books and esoteric books. And one day we were there with my friend, and there we saw there were some books which really looked different, and they were very attractive. So first one we took out was Life Comes from Life. And then we saw other books which were like scattered in that section of the spiritual books, and we could connect that these come together. And there was Bhagavad Gita and some other books from Srila Prabhupada, and we were like completely amazed. These are amazing books. I was holding this Bhagavad Gita, and I was telling my friend, I will read this whole book. And he was laughing because I never read such a thick book. So he was little laughing like that. But that time I was practicing Tai Chi, Qigong and these things. So I borrowed something I wanted to follow up on my exercise. But my friend, he borrowed this Life Comes from Life. And after a week or two, I was studying, I was living at hostel. So we were meeting only on weekends. During the week, I was at hostel about 200 kilometers from my home. And every weekend I met with my friend, and he then told me, this book is completely amazing. And this Prabhupada, he is criticizing the scientists and everyone. He is very strong. And I was thinking in my understanding of things at that time that, oh, actually, he should not criticize like this. He could be like that in previous life also, so he shouldn't be so critical. But anyway, I took the book, I started to read, and after 2 paragraphs, I thought, okay, that's it, that I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
2 paragraphs.
I want Krishna.
Okay.
So
That's
this was
potent.
the life comes from life.
And obviously written in the Czech language.
Yeah, Czech language.
Right.
So yes, so I was very grateful that that book was in the library, and soon after that I borrowed the Bhagavad Gita. And when you have this book in library, there is usually a paper with people, who borrowed the book previously.
Yes.
So after reading this Bhagavad Gita, I thought, oh, must be so many devotees here already, because I thought nobody can read it and not become a devotee. I was I was thinking anybody who read this, he must have been,
Right.
he must be a devotee. Yeah, so like that this started. I even learned the first shloka after reading about 20 pages of this Life Comes from Life. It was Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam va Jagadisha Kamaya. And I was deeply thinking, okay, I don't want Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim. I don't want these things. I want only to serve you, Krishna. And it was very instant. It came like in just few hours of reading.
Wow, very good. So Jayagurudeva, tell us a little bit about what book you first read and what inspired you to initially become a devotee and a Sankirtan devotee.
I was studying archaeology and life sciences in Geneva University. And I met the devotees for the first time in 1973 in Vancouver, BC, and Los Angeles and New York in 1973. And I was intrigued about the devotees. Then I went back to to Switzerland, where I actually lived from 1968 to 1980, something like that. And when I was going to the university, there was the university bookshop. So I went into the bookshop, and I saw this first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam with this beautiful blue cover. They were selling it. There was in those days, there was the library party, which was selling books on commission to bookstores and also to professors at university libraries, etc. That was a very nice program, this library service Prabhupada library party. So they left the Srimad Bhagavatam there in the university bookshop. So I went there and I opened it and started reading. It was so fascinating, but I didn't have the money to buy it. So I just put it back on the shelf. So in this way, I was week after week going to the bookstore and sitting somewhere in the corner and reading the Bhagavatam. And it was fascinating, and it really took me. And then once I came there and somebody bought the books, they weren't there anymore. So what to do. So anyhow, I had the chance to meet devotees on the street in Geneva. They were chanting Hare Krishna. So I inquired if they have these books from Srila Prabhupada, and they said, oh yeah, come to the temple. So I came to the temple and bought the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, and like that. And also I met one Vaishnavi we were sitting with students, and she sold us an Ishopanishad, and I read it, and that really changed my view of life. So like that, excellent. I actually became very much interested. And actually in 1975, the Chaitanya Charitamrita came out, and I got a letter from Guru Gauranga Prabhu, who was the temple president in Geneva. And he told me, he wrote, Jayagurudeva, we just got the Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you're interested. I immediately went to the temple and yeah, I was very happy to read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That was a blessing. And I was mainly blessed by Guru Gauranga Prabhu, who was very keen on contacting me, writing me letters. He was really cultivating me. So I was very happy about that.
Yeah, very personal.
Very personal.
Took an interest in you.
Oh yeah, he's very great Vaishnava. So like that, I kind of like became interested in the literature. And in 1975, I actually quit the university and became a brahmachari distributor in the Geneva temple. And from that on, I was Prabhupada's man.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. Sankirtan Prabhu, tell us how soon after you joined did you start distributing books? Was that your main service just right off the bat, or Harinam?
It actually took some time because I was 17 at the time and I was studying at the secondary, this high school, how to call it, the forestry school. So I had two years to finish. And the devotees in the temple recommended me to finish the school before I joined the temple. So I was suffering there through that 2 years. But I actually could realize that that had a good effect because I really valued the devotee association, because it was not very easy for me. I had to lie to my parents when I was going to the temple. I was supposed to be for the weekend at my hostel, but I went to the temple, which was 400 kilometers away. Wow. So I had to save some money for the train. So I couldn't eat so much because they gave me money just for my eating and like that. So I had to save the money. So I had like a bread, which I baked at home, and I have the cuts with knife, how much I can eat each day. So it remains for the whole week. And I had little butter and the water from the tap. That was my diet for quite some time. And wow. In the temple, of course, I got a lot of prasadam. But when my parents found out that I'm doing like this, there were some difficulties. Anyway, but after 2 years like that, I joined the Bhakta program in Temple Prague. And after Bhakta program, I actually became temple commander just in 1 month. Wow. For the temple. And after another 1.5 years in the temple, I became a full-time book distributor. But I tried book distribution after, when I was still at that college. At that time, I was trying to go for Prabhupada Marathon. First time it was in 2000, year 2000 or 99. Yeah.
How did that go?
So I already knew that devotees are distributing books, and the best devotees, they can distribute 100 books in a day. So I bought some books from the local Namahata center, which was a little closer to the place where I have studied. And I bought about 30 or 40 books. And Ashwari Prabhu, who was the temple president there, he told me, "Oh, that's quite a lot of books."
At one time.
I bought them 30? To distribute them during the marathon. There were just 30 books. But
okay.
I was actually not very good in book distribution in my first years.
Okay.
But this time, usually those devotees who are in congregation, they couldn't distribute so many books. I was completely new, freshly new. And I bought these books, and I was thinking, why 30 books? I mean, these devotees are distributing 100 in a day, so why I cannot distribute 30 in 1 week?
Right.
So then I tried. Then the time came. I was in the town Hranice, which is the place where my college was, forestry. And I was planning to go out. It was December, so there was early dark at 4 or something. And I was thinking, okay, I have to wait before there is darkness, so nobody who I know will see me. And I put the books into the bag and went there into the square, the downtown. And I was there just trying to stop somebody, but then my mind came and I realized I can't stop anyone. Maybe I have to search for the best place. So I walked around the square and came back to the place where I have started. And I did not approach anyone. So I realized, oh, maybe I have some fear or something.
Your mind was stopping you.
Yeah, my mind was, I went again the round, and then I have to stop somebody. So there was one grandmother walking. So I think, okay, that's the good object. So I approached her, excuse me, lady, no, I'm going to church. Don't give me these things, get out of here. So I was a little scared, but then after that I tried, and I actually distributed in 1 hour about 7 big books. And I was happy, and I was thinking, okay, tomorrow I have to increase. And tomorrow I was even more mental. the next day. And I distributed about 2 books. And the third day, I was even more mental and I couldn't distribute anything. I was trying. And then at the end, after 2 hours or something, I was going after school for 2-3 hours. And I distributed 1 book and I was so happy. It was just so blissful. I was like jumping. I distributed Srila Prabhupada's books. This soul is saved. I'm so happy. I was used as his instrument as Krishna's instrument. I was so happy that I distributed this 1 book. But then again, next day I could distribute only 1 small, and then I was burned. And for some time, I just did many other services. And I was waiting for the time when I will be able to go in the street again. And then when I joined temple, so after 2 years in the temple, I became a full-time,
full-time Sankirtan after 2 years.
Distribution. And first 2 years, actually, I was usually the last one on the list, or the second last. Only I had some marathons. I did well. I had some, some big weeks, nice weeks, but usually it was. For 2 years, I was struggling quite a lot.
Right. All right. Well, that's a great beginning. And we can see how the mind tends to stop us from engaging. And as you said, fear is the basis for the mind telling us you can't do this or don't do this. Jayagurudeva, how was it for you? Tell me, this is the title of our series here, podcast is called Sankirtan Stories. So do you have any inspiring stories that you can relate that were unique for you and that you can share with us?
At the very start, when I started distributing books in the German part of Switzerland, I didn't know 1 word in German. And I had a little leaflet, a card which was written in German, and I would hand it to the people. They would read it, and either they would take the book or they wouldn't take the book. And one time, that was one of my most important realizations. I was distributing in Zurich door to door and Bhagavad Gitas and in German. And I went door to door, and everywhere negative, no, we don't want, get out of here. And I was a young devotee also. And at a certain point, I got so frustrated, I just sat on the stairs and wept. Really, I mean, I was really brokenhearted. I think I'm just so useless, and this just doesn't work. So anyhow, I thought, okay, now it's time to go and meet the devotees in the van, They, at a certain point, I think it's 6:30 or something, we were meeting in the evening. So when I came out of that house, I was walking with the Bhagavad Gitas in my bag and also in my hands. And suddenly from one guy was walking and he stopped me and said, "What is this?" I said, "Bhagavad Gita." I said, "I want this book." So he took it, and there were 3 or 4 other people walking by, and they came over and said, "What is this book?" And they spontaneously just asked me to buy the book. I didn't even offer it to them. They just more or less, Paramatma, the super soul, cooperated. And I must say that after that, when I came back to the van, I was absolutely in another world, because I realized that if Krishna wants, he can send the people to me who will buy the books, or he can send me to the people who are interested. So it's all under the control of Krishna. So that was something which really, for me, became very deep realization how actually it's Krishna who sells the book, not me. Because
so
I
you're
really
not
didn't
so
offer
attached to the results. You're letting.
Yeah, I mean, in those days, I was distributing because it was just an order from my spiritual master to distribute his books, and I just did my best. And if it worked out, it worked out. So, like that. One thing I would just like to mention is that in the French part of Switzerland, very early on, I was going on in devotee clothes and dhoti and everything. And I went to a monastery in Fribourg, in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, just on the border between French-speaking and German-speaking Switzerland, into a monastery of the Benedictines. And I asked for the headman, the abbot or whatever, He came down and I showed him the Bhagavad Gita, and he said, wow, this is very interesting, and wow. And then he told me something which really touched me, and he's been accompanying me since ever. And that is that he told me that you are actually the true evangelists, in the sense, not like the evangelic churches, the fanatics Christians in America, the evangelists, or usually they're like the fanatics, but in the real sense of the term, that we're spreading, as I would say, the gospel of Lord Chaitanya. It's a gospel, and we're evangelizing the world with this gospel of Lord Chaitanya, which is mainly Bhagavad Gita. So I was considering that Sankirtan book distribution, it's evangelizing the world, the whole world, with the Krishna consciousness, which is very important for society. So I wouldn't think that I was from the very start convinced that Krishna consciousness and preaching and distributing books is not proselytizing, but evangelizing the world. You know what I mean? It's there's a subtle difference. When you evangelize, you don't eventually want to change people's faith. Whereas when you're proselytizing, that means that you are out there, to get people to join your church, your spiritual movement or whatever. And I also remember when Prabhupada was in the Gaudiya Math, and he wrote this beautiful poem about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he wrote that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the evangelic angel, and for that purpose, I really think that the Sankirtan movement book distribution is an evangelic work, and only those who are evangelists in the heart, they can be actually successful. And Gauravani, which means the gospel of Lord Chaitanya was brought by Prabhupada, and we were just more or less helping him to spread this Gauravani.
Very good. Wow, that's great. A great beginning. And the abbot,
Anyhow,
was you inspired by your preaching, or the book itself? Or
I think that he was inspired by the way we were living. In those days, we were living very simply, I mean, we still are living a very simple life. Mainly Sankirtan Prabhu, he lives in a community, rural community, where they're really trying to live very simple life, celibacy and vegetarian diet, and all the restrictions that we had, and which we still have, that impressed him. And the Bhagavad Gita itself, I guess, was inspiring him also to see it as something. And I guess he saw something within us in those days and still today, which is attractive. And that's this evangelizing spirit, it's not proselytizing like the Jehovah's Witnesses or, all these people who are trying to convince others to join their whatever. We're not into that. We just want to spread the message of Lord Chaitanya. We're insignificant.
Very good. Thank you for that. Sankirtan, your turn. Do you have any stories that are memorable for you that could be inspiring to the audience here?
Yeah, of course. In one sense, after so many years there, I tend to mix everything together already. But yeah, a similar thing. I was doing the door-to-door. I like to do door-to-door actually a lot. And I was doing these apartment buildings. And similar as Jayagurudeva, I couldn't distribute anything. It was just so difficult. And I was sitting on the stairs and my tears were coming from my eyes. And I was thinking, Krishna, please, I want to serve you, but it's just not possible. And then I again, to stand up and stood up and rang the bell, and some grandmother opened the door, and finally she took a book after like 2 hours walking it was in the afternoon or in early evening. It was already dark, and she took one book. And I was, okay, Krishna, at least one book. At least for that person, if I would give up, this person wouldn't have a book. So for that person, I had to stay here so long, tolerate everything, so that this person has a book. So I continued. I usually go up by the lift and then go down by foot, ringing the bells and knocking the door. And then after like 3 levels or
floors,
floors, nobody was again taking anything. And then I have heard somebody is walking down these steps. And I was thinking, oh no, this must be this grandmother, and she is going to give me this book back. And sure enough, the grandmother appeared with the book in hand, and I thought I will collapse. But she said, actually, I came to thank you so much, because I'm so glad that you came. This is exactly what I was looking for. I'm so happy that you rang on my door and that you gave me this book, because I'm already old, but this topic, this is just, I'm so glad to you. So that was so pleasing.
Right.
But okay, that's very nice. And then I went to, I had like 10 minutes more before we were supposed to meet with our other devotees. So I entered another part of this house and went to one floor, the highest floor, and I rang one bell, and the person took like first 3 cantos of Bhagavatam, like 7 books.
Wow.
Then I rang another bell, and the person took 3 books. And I rang another one, there were 3 doors, and the person took 5 books. And I was just, okay, Krishna. In last 10 minutes, I distributed like 20 books. And
this is all from the same
happy.
apartment. This is, I'm sorry, this is some from the same apartment building that the elderly lady took the first
just
book.
the next entrance, like next entrance with another lift. And and then I had to go, and it was blissful it was blissful that I distribute so many, but also I realized in these situations that you can't say to devotees it was so difficult. I went through so many austerities, because finally, how many distributed? Okay, 30. So it must have been bliss.
Okay, great.
So
Very good. Very good. Thank you for that. That's a great experience. Jayagurudeva, anything else come to mind for you in your days as a distributor?
Yeah, I mean, I've sent to Guru Guranga these stories for his memoirs about ISKCON Switzerland, the days when he was temple president, and you have shared them with me. I have them also printed out. But,
yes, can you share one?
Yeah, no problem. Well, I just would like to tell a story about an old lady also. And that was, we were distributing in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, in the mountains, in the Alps, in Canton Valais. And we were going in all these little villages, which are strewn around the mountains there in Switzerland. And the people there are rather staunch Catholics and pious, yeah. So the first time I came in Dodi also as a Vaishnava monk, and I went to this village and I sold quite a few books from door to door. They were like saying, oh yeah, that's very nice. And yeah, so they gave a donation. And the year after I came with the new books, because we were always printing new Bhagavatam parts. So I thought, well, now I'll go to that village. They were so nice and pious, these people up there. And so I went to that same village and I was going door to door, and everywhere I went, the people slammed the door in front of me. They were like, you know, very unpleasant and negative. I came to a shop and tried to sell a book, and the shopkeeper said, I'll call the police. What are you doing here? And so I just, you know, I just went on. And I came to a little house, and there was one of these, you know, chalets, which are in the Alps. And I knocked at the door, and an old lady came out in her traditional attire, because the mountain people, they wear their skirts long and everything. And I said, oh, we're these monks. Last year we were here. And she said, oh yeah, come in, come in. So I was really surprised that she invited me in. And we sat at the table in this, you know, old chalet with this crucifix and the pictures of Mother Mary everywhere, you know, and Christ, the real, like, you know, traditional chalet. And she said, so how is it going? I said, well, it's miserable. You know, people are so negative. They basically, you know, I was feeling that something happened, you know, what's going on? Why are they so? So she told me, well, you know, we went to the church on Sunday for the Mass, And the priest told us that there was a guy, that was last year, a guy was going around the village from some Hindu sect selling some Hindu books. And these books are not Catholic, they have nothing to do with our faith, and they're not good. And so the people decide, and he sort of like said, so get rid of them. So the people said, okay, so we'll just burn them. So they,
From the devil,
so,
huh?
yeah, exactly. So this lady, she told me all this, that the priest said, just burn them, they're from the devil, And then she looked at me and said, but I didn't burn these books. Actually, I have it right here. And she showed to her night table next to the Bible was the Bhagavad Gita. And she said, I love to read this Bhagavad Gita. It's inspiring me. I'm a Catholic and I will never change my faith. But it's so inspiring to read this literature, which is about God from this other civilizations, but so deep, and it really inspires me. So she bought a first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and she wished me all the well, and I just was elated from this experience that Catholics, as I said before, we're not proselytizing. We don't want to change people's faith and religions. That's not our purpose. But we're evangelists. We're spreading the gospel of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is for everyone without distinction of faith, color, or creed.
Right. Well, very good. Very good. Let me just make a note here. Jayagurudeva, the microphone on your cable there is rubbing against the button.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll just
Okay,
put it like this.
Well,
is it better?
No, because it's still knocking into the button on your right collar is. Okay.
Is it better now?
That's better. Okay.
I'll take it off.
Okay, just to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Might have to do an edit there.
Yeah.
So let's see now, Sankirtan Prabhu, your turn. You're up to bat. So any inspiring other anecdotes that you can share?
When Jayagurudeva Prabhu was speaking about Bible, I remember when I was young, a book distributor, I was actually one Christian. I couldn't distribute a book to him, but he distributed to me Bible. And he gave me Bible for free. So I was thinking of what to do with this Bible. So how can I engage this Bible in Krishna's service?
Okay.
And after a few hours, I met one old grandmother, and she was telling, she was not so old, but for me, I was 20. So she said, no, I don't read these books. I am Christian. I read only Bible. Actually, here, I have a Bible. It's a very nice edition. It's a small edition, pocket edition. You can take it with you anywhere. Oh, that's different. I will take one. How much is it? We usually ask for 100. That's the price we usually ask for a big book. So she gave me 100. I gave her Bible, and I said, okay, this, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, this is just extra gift for you. And in this way, she paid the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, but she was thinking she's paying the Bible. So in this way, the Bible was engaged in distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books.
That's nice. So, use your intelligence. Very good.
Funny story.
Very clever. Okay.
I would just like to mention one of the purposes, as I said, that it's not us who distribute the books, and it's not us who are controllers and doers, actually. At Sankirtan, it's all directed by the Supreme Lord and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our spiritual master. So I was on Sankirtan distributing in those days, Christmas marathon. We were going to the malls and distributing on the parking lots, right? And it was in winter, December. So I was a Sankirtan leader, so I had a van full of devotees, and I would put them in different kinds of locations, supermarkets. And I drove over to my supermarket, which was the place where I would distribute. And as I was taking my books from the back, suddenly I saw the winter boots from one of our Sankirtan devotees were forgotten, and the guy was only with his slippers. He just got out of the van, jumped out of the van. So I thought, wow, what a nonsense, But then I thought, wait a moment. I mean, why don't I just go back? And it was about 30 kilometers. It wasn't right around the corner. So I thought, well, it's marathon, and it's his own fault. He's so spaced out, and all. But then I thought, wait a moment, he's distributing Prabhupada's books. I really have to help him. So I just jumped back into the van, drove, half an hour through the traffic or an hour, came to that supermarket and said, hey, you nonsense, here are your boots. Oh, thank you. And it was, freezing,
I can imagine.
So then I thought, well, okay, here are your boots. I'm going back to my supermarket. And when I came to the supermarket, it was already practically noon. So I was thinking, wow, I lost so much time. And in those days, there was this competition spirit. Of course, today it's also, but in those days, it was much more intense because Prabhupada was still on the planet. And
yes,
yeah, and then I started distributing the books, and that was my record day. The books were just flying out of my hand. I didn't even, need to say a few things. Here, these are the books. Oh, okay, how much? And I sold 280 big books in one day, in one afternoon.
Was that your biggest day to
No,
that
I think
point?
I sold a little bit more, sometimes about 300, but we were really fired up, I mean.
Yeah, what was the secret? Everyone wants to know what the secret is.
Well, the secret is that the materialistic society in those days was rather shaken by various historical events, 70s, and the world was still an open, I mean, I would say the ultra-liberal philosophy of capitalism and sense gratification wasn't that strong in those days. People were still questioning, and they were still maybe looking for spiritual inspiration. I think nowadays it's a little different. Mahotsava Saha Prabhu, he's completely a different Vaishnava. He's from a different planet. He can distribute 1,000 books in one day. It's completely, incredible.
Right.
But generally speaking, I think that in those days, Switzerland was still a good place to distribute books because, first of all, we were fired up, and second of all, people were rich in Switzerland.
Okay.
So they could donate without any difficulty for 3, 4, 5 books. It wasn't. But anyhow, the purpose of why I'm speaking about this history is that once again, it's Krishna. He saw that I was thinking about the devotees and helping them, that they freeze their feet. And I was saying, I could have said, oh, what's the purpose? I'm going to distribute more books than all the other guys. Why should I go back? But because I was thinking of the other devotees, and when I came back, I was empowered. I was literally empowered by Krishna to distribute so many books because it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't my power. It was Krishna Shakti. And that was because I was thinking of devotees, and Lord Chaitanya is always thinking of his devotees.
So it was an internal strength that you got by helping your fellow God brother.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking of devotees for their welfare, and that's a part of our. Prabhupada said, your love for me will be manifested how you cooperate with each other and how you love each other.
What would very good point, essential point. What type of lines would you use? Would you have the same delivery or approach to a man or woman or young or old? Would it all be the same type of mantra that you would use to try to distribute a book?
Well, in general, I would be as short and concise as possible, telling the people that these are books from traditional Indian scriptures for the first time translated into German language or French language, if I distribute in French part, or Italian language or Czech language, whatever. That's sort of like the basis. These are premieres. I mean, people until now never had the opportunity to read these books in their own language. It's something which is very special. And I told them that these are books where you can learn really a lot about yoga and spiritual life and everything. And we are actually missionaries. That was my line. And as missionaries, we are not salesmen. We just want them to take the book and give a donation to help us print more books. And yeah, like that sort of.
Yeah, you're being honest.
Selfless.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
Very good. How about you, Sankirtan Prabhu? Would you have one line for everyone, or would it depend on the person you're approaching that you would try to get some intelligence how to stop and get them to take the book? What's your method?
Yeah, actually, it's quite similar to Jayagurudev's Prabhu. I usually use the same lines to whoever I meet, and when it develops a little bit, then Krishna inspires me to say time to time something special, different. But usually the technique is very similar. I have few styles, but generally I do this, and I focus on the principle more than I also my mind is not so creative, like for example my brother Mahotsa is like different things and like can think and speak very quickly. I just can't do this.
I understand. Yeah, no, it's
I just stand there and excuse me, I'm a monk and I have some nice books for you. Just have a look, and I hand them the books, and then I speak with them. And usually I try to distribute book in 1 minute or something like that.
Okay.
And if they are more interested, then I spend more time. But many people which I meet, they are not interested at all. So I just try to and also they are quite poor also here, not so much money. And yeah, then there are of course some challenges like the Christians and etc., which you meet anywhere, everywhere.
Right. What about the paintings in the book? Do you ever use them or to facilitate the attraction to the person you're meeting?
Yeah, I use them like as a very quickly if the people usually they're in a rush. So so I just show them the book, tell them a little more about this. I show them the nice picture, but not always. I'm not using them all the time. Only if I have a little more time, then I focus on them more. But often it is that they just want to go, so I just keep their attention and quickly turn to them asking for some, some contribution for the book, and then I let them know.
So time is of the essence.
Yeah, time is often, it's like that. Because many people who I stop, they do not want to be stopped and they want to go away. And I just 20 seconds. And sometimes they even say, okay, you have 20 seconds. And I say, okay, so that's it. And now you give something. It's okay. It's done.
Very good.
I mean, a little more time. I do door to door. Yeah, of course. Then that's a little different. You can be a little more personal with the people there at home, so you can show them more. That's a little different. Yeah.
Right. Jayagurudeva, do you have? I think I sent you 3 stories. That Guru Garanga suggested. Tell me another one.
As I said, I started to concentrate on Srimad Bhagavatam sets and Chaitanya Charitamrita sets eventually with Bhagavad Gita in the 80s, early 80s already in Switzerland. And then I started like systematically distributing Prabhupada sets door to door. So anyhow, there's a nice story. Of course, I was kind of like thinking these Catholic monasteries and bishops and these people, well, I mean, they're the first people who should learn about God, isn't it? I mean, they're professing God. They're not atheists. So they're the first guys who should know about God. And these books are all about God and what he does, how he creates and everything, So I sort of like thought, well, I'll start doing these monasteries and everything. So anyhow, I was distributing in the German part of Switzerland, Graubünden, doing door to door in a small village again. And one of the guys in the village said, well, I don't know what kind of books there are, but we now have the confirmation of the new Catholic children and the bishops here in the parish. So you should go and see him and tell him if he authorizes these books.
Okay.
So I just went there and knocked at the door, and the priest from the parish, he opened the door and said, what do you want? I said, well, I heard that the bishop is here and I would like to give him a book. Ah, okay. So he invited me in. I was in my devotee Vaishnava monk missionary clothes, and I came into the dining room, and all these priests from the villages around were sitting there with the priest. They just had finished their dinner, their lunch, excuse me. And he kind of like looked at me. He was surprised to see, a saffron-cladded monk in his parish. So anyhow, he invited me in, and the priest went out, and I explained who we are, what we do, how we have these very strict rules and regulations, and how we live in the temple, and how we're going door to door distributing these transcendental literatures about God. Krishna is the name of God in India. You can call him. Anyhow, he said, okay, give me this book. He gave a nice donation and said that I can visit him at his bishop's house in the city of Kur. So we went there with Guru Garanga, our temple president in Zurich, a few weeks later. We made an appointment and he greeted us very kindly and very friendly. He gave us a nice milk prasadam and was very kind. And he actually, I brought the whole Srimad Bhagavatam set, and he was so happy to have it. I said,
Wow.
this is all in Sanskrit, and with the translations in German. These are actually books which were never ever published, and now they're first time for people who are believing in God, a very important literature. So he said, oh yeah, for sure. So he took the whole Bhagavatam set, and then later on the Chaitanya Charitamrita set. He always gave me a nice donation.
Mm.
I was cultivating him. I was visiting him often. And what I was impressed about that he understood that we were evangelists. We're not proselytizing,
Mhm.
that we're really trying to make people more God conscious. That's all, not specific faith. And what I was impressed by, that when I was leaving his house, he was very friendly and kind, humble. And he told me, please pray for me. I said, come on, this is ridiculous. I'm a young monk, here's a bishop, and he asked me to pray for him. So I was very, I would say, pleased by the fact that such nice
Humility.
humility from the people. So I have great, great respect for all faiths without distinction. Prabhupada was also like that. He never, like when you remember what Prabhupada in Australia, how he spoke to these monks near Melbourne in the monastery, these Franciscan monks,
Mhm.
and they clapped and they danced and they were very happy because Prabhupada was not a proselytizer. He was an evangelist, in the real sense of the term, not in the fanatical sense of the term. So that was a very nice Leela when the bishop took all the Prabhupada's books. And another one was, which I wrote to Guru Ganga, was on a Christmas marathon in Geneva. We were distributing until 10 o'clock at night in the parking lots under the station. I was there. And one lady came up with a big Mercedes car with a
Right.
fur coat, and I approached her and I gave her a Bhagavad Gita and said, I don't read these books. I said, well, it's a pity, it's Christmas and these are books which are really full of wisdom, and Christmas is, after all, we should think a little bit about. She said, no, I'm not interested. She turned around and walked away.
Mm.
So I just was distributing it out. And a few minutes later, a guy comes up to me and says, are you the guy who's distributing books with wisdom here? I said, yeah, for sure. And he said, show me. And I gave him the Bhagavad Gita in the hand. And he said, wow, the Bhagavad Gita. Wow, this is a book that I was reading when I was young. Oh, this is superb. How do you want you? Oh, he took the Bhagavad Gita. He gave a very nice donation. And I said, I was walking away and I said, wait a minute. I ran after him. I said, well, I have a whole set of books, Prabhupada, Bhagavatam, which is, expounding the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Oh, yeah, come, you bring it. We're just having a Christmas party in our shop, which is in the shopping center underneath the station. It's just few steps from the entrance. You just come along, and bring all these books. I'm really interested. So I ran to the van. I took the whole Bhagavatam. I ran back and went to the shopping center, went left, 1, 2, 3 shops. There was this Christmas party. And I looked at the shop, and it was a butcher's shop. And they had a lamb a dead lamb,
Right. Hanging there.
hanging there, and all these people in suits, and I came in, and this lady, she looked at me. If looks could kill, she would.
She was the lady from the car that first rejected
Exactly.
you.
She was the lady who told her husband that there's a guy selling wisdom
Okay,
books,
she was
and
married
she's
to
not,
him.
and she was really not interested. And when she saw me come in with a box of books, then she became really like, what's this, And he said, come on. We went to another teller, and I explained to him each canto. Third canto contains all this knowledge about the creation, and fifth canto, the planetary systems and all these reincarnation stories in each canto. There are so many interesting stories. Oh, and I showed him the pictures, of course. And he said, oh, okay, I'll buy these books. How much do you want? I said, oh, just give whatever you can. So he gave out a very nice donation. He said, is that enough? I said, well, if you want to give a little more. So he kept on putting one bill after another. And his wife was looking from the counter, what are you doing? So anyhow, he took all Prabhupada's books, and I preached to him. I said, your karma as a butcher, you're not doing good karma, man. I mean, you're becoming involved. He was one of the biggest butchers in Geneva, and he said, wow, why doesn't Krishna allow meat eating? I said, well, that's the way it is. But that's not proper, I said, anyhow, I preached to him, and I visited him every time I was distributing in Geneva. I went to his shop, and he also gave a little donation. And finally, he sold his shop and retired. So it had some effect.
Still married to the lady?
Well, he must be already dead. That was in the 80s.
No, I know, but
he must be already passed. He was elderly. He wasn't a young man, and the lady also. They were in their 60s, and I was in my 30s, like that, late 30s.
So what's the lesson? What do you realize from that the wife wasn't into it, but the husband was?
Well, what do I realize from that? That he was thinking deeply, and she wasn't. Of course, she was more interested in, keeping her standard and her status quo. Whereas he was a thoughtful man. And basically, I've sold Bhagavad Gitas and sets even to many butchers in Austria and Germany and Switzerland, everywhere. Even here in Prague, I sold books. Butchers are okay. Slaughterhouses are worse. I never sold a book in a slaughterhouse. Never.
Okay.
To owner of a slaughterhouse or director. That's so heavy karma there. It's so heavy. I've spoke with many devotees, but most of the devotees, they agree with me that there's such heavy karma in slaughterhouses. It's impossible.
Better not even go there.
Not even go. But the butchers, they have some kind of remorse. I don't know, Krishna Paramatma, of course. We're Sankirtan devotees. We work with Paramatma. We don't work with mantras or tricks or everything. The real story is Paramatma, so these butchers have a feeling, oh, this guy is giving me some book that's maybe going to be good for me. If I give him a donation, my karma will be like that. So that was a nice Christmas story. It reminded me of the Christmas story from Charles Dickens. So.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Sankirtan Prabhu, anything else comes to your mind in the last, how many years now have you been on Sankirtan from the time that you really got into it and you developed, a taste and, doing it full time? How many years now are you been doing Sankirtan?
Now it's my 20th year. I'm starting 20. This will be my 20th year when it will be finished. Wow. So I'm starting my 20th year this year.
Fantastic.
So that's the grace of the Lord, because in the beginning I was thinking, I wanted to do it, but I was thinking, just, it's not practical. My income is not really.
I understand. So any other type of inspirational stories that you remember during those 20 years that stand out for you?
Yeah, there is one from, we were staying for 1 week with some newcomers. It was a Grihastha couple which just joined the Krishna consciousness. So we stayed in their house. And we were spending quite some time after Sankirtan to teach them different things about devotional service. So there was no time to read the books. And I was thinking, okay, the whole week I didn't read anything Krishna. I really need to read something. I was feeling like I need some time. But I also wanted to distribute some books because, we were doing door to door there. And it was a small town. And it was before the noon. I was supposed to go for the break, and there was the last house, and it was the apartment building, which was for the handicapped people and also old people with the special care.
Yes.
So you were not supposed to go in even. So I was praying, Krishna, please let me distribute some books so I can, in the afternoon spend some time with Bhagavatam and recharge my batteries. And I was ringing the bells at the entrance, main entrance, but nobody was answering. I was thinking
to open the door for you, right?
Yeah. but no, but then finally somebody was going out, so I squeezed in.
Right.
And went into the first floor. It was a big corridor of the U shape. And I started first door. Somebody opened, took a book. Second door. And they opened, took 2 books. Then third door, they opened, took another book.
What do you
Then
say? What books? Bhagavatams? What do you
I
distribute?
had at that time Krishna books. I had Krishna books, and maybe I have a Prabhupada Lilamrita, and I had some Gitas with me, and usually I carry also first 3 cantos of Bhagavatam. We call it a small set.
Okay.
So, and that in each doors they took a book. Then the nurse came around, and she was like looking at me, what I'm doing there, and I looked at her like, I am supposed to be here. It's like, so she went away. And she did not realize what's going on.
How are you dressed? Are you in devotional clothes or street clothes?
I'm not sure, because first part of my book distribution, first 5 years, we distributed in karmic clothes, and then we started to change. So it was at the time we were changing. I think I was in karmic clothes.
Okay.
I was dressed in karmic clothes. And yeah, then one man opened the door, or he told me just come in. He just even did not stand up from his chair. And he was watching TV, and in the TV was just this, this grain, when you have this black and white grain, when you don't have any signal. So he's watching this
static.
And he was a little crazy, but he took 5 books. And finally, I was at the end of the corridor, and in my trolley remained 1 pair of Krishna book, 1 Bhagavad Gita, and this Srimad Bhagavatam, first 3 cantos, and the last 3 doors. So I was praying like, Krishna, please let me distribute everything here. And one lady opened, and she took these 2 Krishna books. Then 2 doors remaining. So the man opened, and he took Bhagavad Gita. Okay, last door, and I have only these Bhagavatam, these 3 cantos. And one lady opened and said, come in. And we were speaking about the different things and ecology. And I put all books on the table and was explaining to her. And finally, she took everything. And the trolley was empty, and I was free. I went happily back to the base, and had a nice afternoon of reading Srimad Bhagavatam.
I can tell you a nice story.
Okay, go ahead.
That happened in Austria. It was quite a far out thing. I was going on Sankirtan also with a group of devotees, and so I left them in different towns. It was north of Vienna. And I was going to my city where I would distribute also. And I came to a railroad station. I was all alone in the van. I came to a railroad crossing, and the lights were beaming already. Bing, 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 bing. I thought, wait a moment, should I, shouldn't I? So I just stepped on the gas and drove through. And about 2 kilometers further, I came to another barrier, And okay. So I stopped the car. I was all alone in front of the barrier, the train. And from the other side, a huge Mercedes-Benz Vienna #1 was there. I thought, that must be the president. So I jumped in the back, took out a book, ran under the barrier. And when I was approaching the car, he was just stretching out a little bit with his wife and with the driver. The driver was reaching into his thing, if maybe I'm not a terrorist, pulling out his gun or something.
Yeah. Be careful.
Yeah. So I ran up to the president. Oh, hello, we're from Vienna. We have a cultural center. We have these beautiful books. And I gave the president the book, and he said, oh, wow, far out. And I wrote into the book our address, sort of where we are in Vienna. We had a center there. And he said, oh, that's interesting. And just at that moment, the barriers opened and no train went by. I was I was shocked, So I jumped back into my van, and he jumped back into his V1 huge Mercedes-Benz that they drove over. And he sent me a letter, personal letter to our center. The president of Austria, Dr. Kirchschläger, it was 1981 or something like that. And he wrote a letter. He said, usually barriers separate people. In our case, barriers united us.
Wow. He's
That was
a smart
amazing.
man. Yeah, good
Oh,
realization.
he was very nice. By the way, he was also involved with our Czechoslovakia because he was an ambassador to Czechoslovakia in 1968 when Czechoslovakia was occupied by tanks. You know? And he was very kind because the Austrian government didn't want to get visas to the people who had run away from Czechoslovakia from the Russians, you know. And he, despite that the government wasn't agreeing, he gave about 2,500 visas to people who wanted to leave Czechoslovakia. So a very kind man. Anyhow, we met him. We made another appointment. I went to meet him in this presidential palace
Wow.
in Vienna.
Okay.
And
He
made an
remembered you.
appointment.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. And I brought a whole Bhagavatam set, and he said very nice. He kept the Bhagavatam set for the presidential library like that. Yeah, yeah, it was very nice. I didn't ask for any money, of course. You know, at
Oh,
that
yes.
level, it's ridiculous.
Sure.
Yeah, it wasn't a very short meeting. It was very, very sweet, and I think we were very, yeah, it was very cordial and very nice. And Krishna arranged this, and he understood that also. You know, standing at a railroad crossing where no train goes.
Right. He was advanced.
Yeah,
He had some spiritual awareness himself.
yeah, yeah. And I have another story here. You know, I was selling books in the UN in Geneva. I would put on a wig and an attaché case. I looked like exactly like somebody employed at the United Nations.
Okay.
And I went, because there are guards there, you know, it's
Sure.
really strict. So I went from office to office to office with my attaché bag. Every time I emptied the bag, I ran out somewhere I had deposited my books. I filled out the attaché case and I walked by like I was, you know, one of these guys. And I sold, I don't
Suit
know,
and tie, huh?
yeah, exactly. 50 books about, and then finally I came to some office where they kind of like were suspicious and they called the guards and they gave me the foot, you know. But still, it was really ecstatic to sell in the UN undercover.
Yeah. Incredible. What was your particular line, if you remember it? How would you
Well, the
approach those
line was
individuals?
those individuals the same, you know, we are institution which is translating for the first time in this English or in French language these classical literatures from India, which are full of spiritual wisdom and teachings which are authorized. You know, these are books are very authorized from India. Usually in the West, we don't have the opportunity. If then some Indologists maybe study these books, but not the general public. So we want to make it available to the public because it's enriching for their life and everything like that, you know.
Very good.
So
Just
they were
very
quite positive.
straightforward.
Very straightforward. Oh, I must say one thing, that the difference between book distribution here in the Czech Republic now and then in those days, we were mostly selling books which were foiled packed in plastic, you know. And we were careful not to open the books from the plastic, off the plastic from the books, out of fear that the people would give it back when they see the Sanskrit in it, you know.
Oh, I see.
So we were kind of like, in those, it was straightforward, but at the same time we were careful because many times it did happen. But people, in those days, to distribute a lot of books, you just would have to give them with the plastic. They looked new, of course.
Yeah, shrink wrapped.
Shrink wrapped, exactly. And but here, what I like on Sankirtan Prabhu, and also when I was distributing here, that people really look at the books. They're open and they buy open books. So that's very straightforward. Very straightforward. Of course,
Go ahead. Sorry.
Book distribution on the streets has a little knack to it. Some devotees get frustrated so much that they become arrogant, you know. And that's something which is very bad. Vijay Prabhu said in your interview something which struck me and seems to me the essence. Is that the golden rule for book distribution, be it on the street or door to door, but specifically on the street, is always leave a good impression. Always leave a good, that's a golden rule, you know. And sometimes it does happen that devotees, are so insisting or so, I would say, fired up, or they get sort of like arrogant, and they can cause more damage than good, in the sense that people go away angry, you know. It happened to me in Austria, in Linz, once, that I was distributing sets, and I came to a village and a township, and a shopkeeper, she said, "Oh, we're interested, come with us at lunch, my husband is also interested. So I brought the whole Bhagavatam, explained. They opened the Bhagavatam and they said, wait a moment, isn't this the book that this guy in Linz was pushing us to buy? I said, oh, and I said, no, they're not. And then the man said, yeah, these are the books. These are the books. Pack them up and get out of the door, you know. And I said, why? What happened? He said, and then he explained to me some devotee was so heavy, so arrogant, so, I mean, really arrogant with these people, that the wife, who was very nice, she started crying, you know, because he was just so arrogant,
offensive. Yeah.
Offensive, really offensive. So one should be very, very careful on how to, because sometimes we think that these people are just dirty karmis and things like that, but you never know. These people are just in spiritual life, but at that moment she didn't have time. She had to go to visit somebody at the hospital or whatever,
Right.
you know, and the devotee was so insisting and so arrogant that it just, and it spoiled my sale of the Bhagavatam, because hadn't it been before happened this,
Right.
they would definitely buy the Bhagavatam. They were really interested. I showed them all the cantos and everything was really nice, you know. So always leave a good impression. Rule number one.
Very good. Very good. Well, we're about rounding up the time that we have here, but that's a great instruction for everyone. So Sankirtan, do you have any parting words or words of advice for new Sankirtan devotees, old time Sankirtan devotees? What 25 words or less words of wisdom in distributing Prabhupada's books?
Yeah, my thoughts in my mind all the time is that Srila Prabhupada gave me this opportunity to read these books. Some devotees, they distributed them so I could approach these books. So I just think all the time, okay, Krishna, I have no other choice than to distribute these books. It's just, I mean, even if I can say I distribute already 20 years, but with another 20 years, I just, what will I do? I just want to please Srila Prabhupada, and when I hopefully meet him one day, I can tell him, Srila Prabhupada, I did this service for you, and hopefully I pleased you with my effort, and even if it's difficult and hard, then all the time I remember how Srila Prabhupada would be pleased with the effort we do, and also I think in the little bit in the mood of the purport Srila Prabhupada gave when Dhruva Maharaj was coming back home, back to Godhead, and he was thinking of Suniti, and Srila Prabhupada was also saying there, I hope that even I'm in such, how he says, I'm crippled in many ways, but if one of my disciples becomes strong as Dhruva Maharaja, then he will be able to carry me with him to Vaikuntha Loka. So I think if some of that persons who got a book from me become a devotee and become a pure devotee, that could save me. Although I'm such a nonsense, if I distribute so many books, maybe one of them will become a pure devotee, and this could
you get the credit. Very nice thoughts. Well, I thank both of you for joining me. I know it's probably a little late there where you are 9 hours further advanced than I am as far as our time goes, but you're very gracious to accept my invitation, and I'm sure, I know every one of your stories have been inspirational for all of the viewers here, so carry on the good work.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate all your time.
I'm looking forward for the next interviews you're making, because there's so many very nice Vaishnavas distributing books, and I'm very thankful to you for all of your hard work that you're doing. And yeah, I think everybody's happy with you, that you're doing such nice service for Prabhupada and for the Sankirtan mission.
Thank you for that words of acknowledgement. I hope I can fulfill that. Again, thank you, and have a happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bo.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.